My name is Ron Gold, and once again in conjunction with Three Tree Hill Lodge, I'm making a series of short videos on stories from the South African War. Today's story involves Major Childe of the South African Light Horse. Charles Baldwyn Childe-Pemberton was born in 1853 in the small Shropshire town of Kinlet, where his family had been living for several hundred years, wealthy landowners. He was educated at Harrow and a few years thereafter joined the blues part of the Household Cavalry. He would spend 10 years in the army serving in the Egyptian War and would be present at the Battle of Tel-el-Kebir. In 1884 he married the widow Amelia Montgomery, and the following year, now with the rank of captain, resigned from the army. He spent 15 odd years living the life of a country squire back in Kinlet, where he was a magistrate, and he and Amelia raising their young family. But when the South African War broke out, he immediately applied to join the composite regiment that the Household Cavalry were putting together, but was rejected on account of his age. Nonetheless, he makes his way to Cape Town in November of 1899, a year after the war began, and there with Colonel Julian Byng, they recruit locals into a colonial unit of mounted infantry, which becomes known as the South African Light Horse. And it is second in command of that regiment that he will end up here, not far from where I'm standing, on the 19th of January 1900, when the commanding general in this theatre, Lieutenant General Sir Charles Warren, decided to make an attack on Boer positions to my left, way off to the north, and we'll give you a view of that a little bit later. There is a story that evening, sitting with his brother officers at his camp not far from here, he had a premonition, and he said to them, "If I should fall tomorrow, this is the epitaph I would like for my tombstone." Major Childe's request of his fellow officers was honored by them, and on his tombstone appears the verse that he had requested, taken from the second book of Kings, chapter 4, verse 26. "Is it well with the child? It is well." Behind me is the flat-topped, steep-sided feature known as Bastion Hill. And the British attack that will be made to the north, which is to my left, the extreme left of that British assault line, would be comprised of units of the Mounted Brigade, and the attack on Bastion Hill would be led by the South African Light Horse under the command of Major Charlie Childe, who by this time had simplified his name and dropped the Pemberton off the one end. And possibly it was the informal situation in South Africa that had encouraged that. On the morning of the 20th of January, the South African Light Horse, led by Charlie Childe, climbed these precipitously steep slopes. The first man to the top was a corporal by the name of Tobin. Apparently he'd spent many years in the Royal Navy scuttling up and down the rigging, which qualified him for this particular task. The Boers had largely withdrawn, so the hill was taken without any great difficulty. And this hill was known by the Zulu people as Nobomi, and Nobomi means the place of good grazing. The British called it Bastion Hill, and today we give it a different name, but we'll come to that later. Within a few meters, few yards of where you can see this monument, Major Childe stopped, sat down on a rock, no doubt to catch his breath after the very steep climb. And as luck would have it, a Boer shell from the north, pretty much in the direction I'm facing, landed fairly close, exploded, scattering splinters and shell fragments, one of which killed Major Childe instantly. Once again, I found myself back on the low ground below the hill, and behind me you can see Bastion Hill, excepting that today it's known as Childe's Hill. And I'm standing in the small military cemetery where the mortal remains of Charlie Childe would eventually find their final resting place. Thank you for watching. Next week we're going to have a look at General Sir Redvers Buller VC, and perhaps look at a different side of Buller to the one that is so often portrayed in writings of this period.